May God's peace, mercy and blessings be upon you. My name is Muhammad. New video and new story. But before starting, do not forget to pray for the Prophet Muhammad. May God bless him and grant him peace. Let's begin. Our story begins with a girl named Diana Chrisman who was born on March 21st, 1936. Of course, she was the eldest daughter in the family and she had a younger sister named Rita. In addition to their baby sister, Sherry, this family had been living in an area called Ponyville for a very long time. Sometime later, they decided to move to a state called Missouri, specifically in the city of Columbia. This family owned a restaurant and a cave in the same city where they lived and at the same time on the second floor. That family had good reputation and they were known to be a respectable family. All the residents of the neighborhood loved them, and the mother used to say that her Diana is completely different from the rest of her sister. Diana was kind, beloved and involved in her studies. She was social and mingled with her friends in the neighborhood and at school. Everyone loved her because her father Ed and her mother Jennifer were merchants. They taught her from a young age who thought really on herself. Indeed, when she grew up and became 18 years old, she began to strive and work hard to get a job. But unfortunately, they were never lucky. Diana decided to work after her leave from the university as a nanny in order to collect a sum of money of the new school year. And after a period working in the neighborhood in which she lived, everyone loved her because she was very patient and kind with the children, and her reputation began to expand and spread greatly in the region. One day she received a call from one of the families and they offered her a sum in exchange for being a babysitter for their child, Jack, who was only 3 years old. Diana refused in return to told the family that the amount was very small, but that family was strangely persistent and clinging to Diana, to the point that Diana wondered what the reason for that insistence was. They were very insisting that Diana come to their house, so they offered her a larger sum than the first, but she also refused. Suddenly they offered her a larger sum than that previous ones, so Diana was tempted by the sum and unfortunately she agreed. I wish she had not agreed. The house where she was going to work is very far from the city where she lives, in a rural area and completely isolated from the society. The important thing is that Diana arrived at 7 o'clock in the evening and the mother and father received her. And when they opened the door for her, Diana was shocked. Her shapes were so strange, even their behavior towards her was strange. When Diana was on her way to her room, she saw the relatives of that family, and their appearance was very strange and did not inspire reassurance at all, as if they were mutants and not human. Diana says that their behavior was childish and strange, and they were mentally different. Both the mother and father sat with Diana and began explaining to her about the rules of the house. They warned her of some things that she should not to do, and told her that their son was annoying and that she must be his behavior. The father also taught Diana how to use weapons in the event that they were not at home and she was exposed to any attack, so that she would be able to defend herself. As I told you, the area in which they lived was isolated and dangerous. The father put the weapon behind the door and told Diana not to open the door to any stranger. Then they left the house to spend the night outside. The weather at that time was very cold. Diana took the little boy to bedroom to sleep. Then she went to the living room to watch television. Suddenly, Diana heard the sound of someone knocking on the door. Diana was frightened and was hesitant to open the door or look to see who was knocking, so knocked on the door again, and this time she was disturbed. Curious, she decided to ask the knocker about opening the door. When Diana approached the door, she looked and did not find anyone. She was very frightened and ran quickly to little boy's room. then closed the door on herself. But the big shock was that the sound became inside the house. There were those voices, and that person was searching for something, and suddenly I heard the voice of someone climbing the stairs and advancing towards the room in which she was hiding. Diana quickly picked up the phone and called the emergency number and told them that there was a stranger who had broken into the house and was trying to reach her and the child. So they asked her for an address, the house, the name of the area and also the road address. But communication was cut off at that time, and she did not give them any information about its location. At the same time, the mother and father called Diana and the phone was disconnected. They called again, but with the same result. So they decided to stop their evening and go home. And when they returned, they found something strange. The mother and father found the lighting in the house working even though they turned it off when they left. They also found the windows broken and the curtains cut and torn. When they entered the house, the sight was absolutely incredible, and what they saw was not normal at all. They found Diana on the ground with the phone strap wrapped around her neck, and her body was exposed to 6 stab wounds, 2 of which were in the neck and the rest were on different parts of her body. And the whole. Do not forget to pray for the Prophet Muhammad. May God bless him and grant him peace. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share your opinions in the comments. It was full of blood, so God went up to their son's room to see him. And the view was also very, very disastrous. They found his head separated from his body and all the limbs of his body. It was cut up and thrown in every corner of the room. God quickly called the police, and when the police and investigators came, they discovered something very sad. They discovered that when the killer attacked Diana, he stopped her several times and she tried to escape from him. They found blood prints in more than one place. Then they used police dogs to find out things about the killer, and they found footprints on the side of the back window that had been broken with a drilling tool. After that, the dogs came out and took them behind the revenge for more than 10 miles approximately until the trace reached the valley and stopped suddenly. The strange thing about the matter, and what the policemen agreed on, was that a team, some of them said that the matter was planned by the mother and father, and they said that the child was not their child, but rather an adopted child, so they used it to remove suspicions from them. And some of the policemen denied this thing and said it was impossible. If they wanted to get rid of Diana, they would have had many easier ways. Because of the difference in point of view between them, they never reached any solution. The police gathered all the residents of the area and began investigating them. But some of the investigation did not reach anything at all. After that, the police summoned the relatives of that family that I talked about at the beginning of the story, and whose appearance made anyone suspicious of them. But the same thing happened after they investigated them and did not reach any results. There was a girl named Mary, 19 years old, who was also a babysitter. She worked in a house very close to the house where Diana worked. The strange thing is that Mary was killed a year ago in the same way that Diana was killed. At that time, they arrested a young man named Floyd who was 35 years old. He was arrested for the murder of his wife. He had killed his wife in a very brutal way, and after they interrogated him for 10 hours, but unfortunately they did not reach any results, and he did not have anything linking him to the murder of Diana, and the story of murder remained. Diana is mysterious, and that young man was sentenced to death because he killed his wife. This story spread throughout. The state and people began to live in fear and anxiety because the criminal was at large and the government was unable to arrest him. The strange thing is that this young man, before his execution, told the police that when he got rid of his wife, one of his friends, whose name was Muller, helped him. Indeed, when they searched Muller's file, they found him among the most wanted people. At that time, he was 28 years old and had a strong relationship with the son of the child, Jack Ide. So they arrested Ide and Muller. Ide said in his statement that when Muller used to come and train with the weapons, he was a righteous person. He was always harassing Diana, attacking her, and trying to reach her in any way. Diana would reject him and respond to him harshly, saying that he was a backward and crazy person. Muller began to feel Diana's cruelty to him, and he even began to doubt himself. One day he asked Diana to come to him and sit with his children. Diana completely refused and told him, "I work for Ed's family and it is impossible for me to come to you." However, when Mullard was invited to the party that Ed and his wife went to when they left Diana with their child, Muller asked permission to go to the party. The party is under the pretext that his son is sick and has an appointment. Also, after Diana's death, Muller called Ed and told him, "If you need help cleaning the house, I am here." Ed was shocked and said to himself, "How did Muller know about the death of Diana and our child, even though we had not told anyone yet?" The big problem is that Ed did not inform Muller. After the investigation, Muller convinced the investigators that he had nothing to do with the murder and told them that he was Ed's close friend and that Diana knew him well. He told them that he was always present at the house, so if he had wanted to kill Diana, he would not have had to break the windows. He said that I would have been able to enter the house because Diana knew me, and then I killed her. And indeed what he said was true, because Diana knows Ed well and will open the door of him if he knocks on her. But some of the investigators were not convinced by Ed's words. Then they took him to a barn outside the area and took a lie detector with them. And throughout the night they interrogated him, but at that time the lying devices were not working well. And in this way Muller was able to deceive the lie detector. And after they presented the investigation to the judge, Muller was released after a while. Muller moved to the state of Arizona and lived there at the age of 83. Then he died in 2006. As for Diana's family, they were psychologically devastated because they did not receive adequate justice to this day. And here our story ends. Do not forget to pray for the Prophet Muhammad. May God bless him and grant him peace. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share your opinions in the comments. May God's peace, mercy, and blessings be upon you.